Learn from the world's best all in one place with Masterclass, the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 of the world's best. Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/Spotify for the current offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Back at it again with another episode of the Shades of Blue. As you can tell, this is not Cody Bradley. It is not the nice, sultry voice of Mr. Cody Bradley. This is Thad Bell from the KC Soccer Journal. With me, I have David Greenwald and Robert Russert. How are you guys?
Good. Doing well, sir. How are you?
Not bad. Did I bring the Cody energy?
Pretty good.
No.
Thanks.
Can we all go around and try to do our best? Back at it again. Just to see who can most Cody this.
All right, Robert, go for it.
Back at it again. The Shades of Blue Soccer Show.
That was terrible.
David?
I just did mine.
Do better.
No, I did the best I can do.
Okay, you were asking for us to be able to do our own, and you gave us that. Shut up. All right. All right, man. Like we don't have a ton of time. It's late at night on Monday. It's holidays, all that good stuff. First thing we wanted to bring out of the gate was Sporting went through the MLS Superfluous draft and got 3 players.
Yeah, they also got 162 500,000 in GAM, so not bad.
Yeah, for dropping 4 spots and getting the player that you were wanting to get in the first place.
There you go.
So that was actually a good Trader Pete moment there, I believe.
I'm actually really happy with what we got out of that pick also.
Yeah.
The draft is mostly dead, but you can still find value and you can still find guys. And generally speaking, getting center backs out of the draft is one of the more effective positions, one of the only positions you can really almost guarantee some level of contribution out of the draft. Jansen Miller was our number 8 pick, the number 8 overall pick. And is, at least according to some metrics, was the best defender on the board. So our friends at AmericanSoccerAnalysis.com, which is an awesome website, and everybody should go check it out.
That's why I linked him in the article.
It's extremely nerdy, and it just makes my heart so happy. But he was at the top of their tier 1 center back rankings. I mean, they had him rated as the best center back available in the draft. So I'm very optimistic that we found a guy who's going to be able to contribute this year, or at least in the next 2 years, let's say.
Yeah, of course, David is ignoring the fact that he's from St. Louis, but that's okay.
I didn't know that. He went to college at Indiana. That's all I knew.
Yeah,
he's from my hometown, actually.
Yeah,
okay,
he's from St. Louis.
Everything I just said.
But on the bright side is his family is now converted to Sporting fans.
Exactly.
It might go back if they don't sign him though, so you never know. And yeah, I do. I did list because he's from St. Louis. I did list which high school he went to. So in the article.
So Thad, you'll probably have a better sense of this than, certainly me, maybe Robert, but what do historically the last handful of drafts that we've had, the players for Sporting have not actually signed team contracts. Most of them have signed second team contracts. Do you expect that Jansen Miller will get a first team contract?
I would say most of the first round guys have signed first team contracts. It's the ones after that that pretty much have went to the second team. So like Chris Rindolph, Frifa, so that's those guys kind of have went to the first team. They may not play a lot for the first team, but they went to the first team. So I do expect Jansen Miller to go to the first team and then see a fair amount of time with the twos. After that, though, I would be very surprised if those other guys sign a first team contract. Hopefully, they pleasantly surprise me, but yeah.
So you're talking about the other guys. So you're talking about our second round pick was Anthony Samways, who's
Yep.
a right back, I think, or a wing back out of Ohio State.
Yeah, he's outside back. I don't remember which side he was. I'll be honest, but I was hoping he could play right just to as a backup.
So again, American Soccer Analysis lists him as a right back, and he's in their tier two of players. His profile is pretty interesting. I mean, he definitely looks like he was more of a wing back than a fullback, so a little bit more involved in the attacking aspect of the play
Yeah.
than just being a pure defender, which is an interesting profile. Just because one of the things that made us so effective for a while was having an attacking minded fullback like Graham Zusi, who Robert loves, uh, or Jake at his best was marauding forward and combining with Johnny. So the idea of having a guy who's a little bit more offensive oriented down that side hopefully will help.
If nothing else, it provides options. Even if it's not your main one, it's the option to either go left or go right. So yeah, it would be good. And then the third guy is Leon Cole. German, played midfielder for Maryland. Could play several different roles. He, little, D mid a little bit, attacking mid. I think pretty much a little bit of everything in there.
20-year-old youngest of the three. And, all these picks fit the Sporting mold for sure with the active right back, a ball controlling center back, which we could use for sure. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good draft overall.
Yeah, going back to Jansen for a second, he did very much say that he loved to go forward. So you might have a center back that's trying to dribble into the attacking, into the other 18. So you never know.
Shades of Iko Para.
Hey, you
Oh,
remember the days when he used to go forward? People are like, oh my God, what is he doing?
yeah, Aurelian Collin even before that.
Yep.
It was a little scary at times.
But those were the
Yeah.
good days, so maybe that's a good sign.
Again, I think it's a good draft for what they had at that position, and just being from the college draft is still a crapshoot. So I think it's a good draft. I think they did well with who they chose, with what they had at the time. We'll just have to see if any of them turn out. I mean, I wish them luck. Sporting needs to have some good luck go their way with players.
Yeah, I mean, as dumb as the draft is, and as much as it probably needs to go away, while it's still here, it is a mechanism by which the team can improve for relatively cheap. You don't have to pay a transfer fee. You don't, the scouting is different because it's all domestic and based on the NCAA, but might as well, if you're going to have it, might as well do well at it. So I'm very hopeful and optimistic that the team took it seriously, and it sure seems like we got good value at least out of the top two picks.
Yeah. And the third guy too, he's 20, so he still has, age-wise, he has room to grow. And, his claim to fame was he sat on the bench in a Bundesliga game for one game.
I will say
Yeah.
that was kind of an interesting facet of the college draft now is like how different the profile is of who plays college soccer than what it used to be. It looks like, so many of these guys like came from European academies and weren't necessarily going to make their way to the first team in like the Bundesliga or Ligue 1. So they come to the United States and play soccer and probably have a really good time. Um, and then get to put their name to the draft and maybe make it, later on as they develop.
Or go back and try again to be a pro, but have a college education behind you now. So they have a lot of different opportunities. And I think that's going to be the evolution for the draft going forward. I think that's a good point you brought up there, David. It used to be a lot of the NAIA teams would have former pros on their teams who had, had a cup of coffee at some other team in Scotland or somewhere, and then came over and went to college and maybe worked their way back into a pro rank at a different point. Kevin Suter being one of them from that played for Sporting. All right. Anything else about the draftees?
No, the downside to the draft is that it's extremely hard to have any like really good concrete information about any of these people. And college soccer is not well covered by, the media in this country. And it's such a peculiar version of the sport that we love that it's tough to tell who profiles properly to professional.
True, but there are places that have done well in the past. Top Drawer Soccer was one of them. I know I've done scouting for them before. Well, I should say scouting, but I've written up results and things like that for them before a couple times, and they have done a good job of predicting drafts and the stuff in the past. I just think that they have not even done that as much now because it is that much harder to cover that. There's been plenty of them before. I used to like always go out and see 10 different mock drafts by people who thought they knew soccer in college, and now when I was looking, it was like one. And thankfully, again, to American Soccer Analysis for doing what they did. All right, end of segment 1.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du noch? If you've had that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Deck your home with Blinds.com. Blinds.com. DIY or let us install. Blinds.com. Free design consultation. Free. Plus free samples and free shipping. Free.
Head to Blinds.com now for up to 40% off select styles plus a free professional measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Segment 2, Current have made some moves. They have signed a keeper off a free agent keeper, Laurel Ivory, and also they have acquired Rocky Rodriguez for some cash. And that's a couple of interesting signings. And there was a rumor out there that they were signing the Brazilian keeper who did so amazingly well in the Olympics, and I have been told that has happened. That just don't know when they're going to actually announce it, because I think they're trying to hold off on any announcements now during the Christmas part of the season.
So Rocky Rodriguez, I mean, come on, that's a perfect name. First of all,
yeah,
Cody would love that. Second of all, just some experience in the midfield, some big game experience. So I think that's very important for this roster, especially since it was kind of thinned out a little bit before this, right?
Well, they lost a few players, and I really think Rocky is a good replacement for Desiree Scott. She retired. She's been around forever, but she was a player that, Vaco used to kind of come in and close out games. She wasn't as fast as she used to be. She wasn't as a lot of things as she used to be, but she still was really smart about how to play the game, and so she could come in and do that work as necessary. You could almost compare her to Roger Espinoza in a way in that regard. Desiree was much more of a true D mid, but you'd bring in Roger late in the game to hopefully close something out. That's what he was trying to use Des, and I think he's always had some player that he always brings in the last 20 minutes of a game to close it out. Even back to the FC Casey days, one of the from one season to the next, he was like, "Well, we need a player to do this," and he went out and they got Amy Lepelbit, who was coming off really massive knee injuries, but she was able to get 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And as the season went on, I know like towards the end of her time, I think she had some actual starts, some good long starts. But for the most part, she came off the bench 10 minutes, 20 minutes to close out games. And that's how they got one of the championships back in the FC Casey days. So he likes to have a specialist essentially to do that.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, the Current improved, as the season went through, and then to have someone to come in and make smart decisions on the ball when maybe you're trying to hold on to a lead, it's certainly something good to have on the roster.
So Thad, how do you feel about the Current's roster build as we head into the new year?
I think it's good. I mean, you bring in back most of the primary contributors except for the goalies. They all three of them are gone. Almuth Schultz, AD Franch, and I cannot remember the other keeper's name that they signed who never played. I don't think she's even on the bench, but she was just there in case something happened. They needed a third keeper. But anyway, Almuth Schultz went back to, well, she's presumably going back to Europe. She hasn't signed anywhere that I know of yet, but it was very much that she was going to, if the Current were in Europe, she would have signed back with them. She just wants to be back closer to family. And she also has some big business interests, from what I've heard too, that I don't really know what she's doing there, but she wanted to be back there with 3 kids. So I don't blame her.
So speaking of roster build, Thad, in our Slack discussion, I think you made a really good point about kind of the difference in how the Current are able to operate and the, kind of setting they're in their league, as opposed to Sporting setting and how they kind of have to operate and what they're maybe limited by that the Current maybe aren't. So just relay that to our audience here. I thought it was a pretty good point that you made, the difference between the two.
Yeah, and somebody kind of jokingly said, "Can we get Vlaco and the GM? Can't think of her name right now. I apologize. But if we could get them to do the signings for Sporting," and I'm like, "Yeah, this is such a different world, though. They are one of the best teams in arguably the best or one of the top best couple best team leagues in the world, with a new stadium, riding high, controlling their own money in a stadium that's just for them, high profile, a former national team coach, whether you thought he did a great job with the national team or not, but he's had that success, that history of success. Just all of those factors play into any player in the world wants to come play for the Current right now. Obviously there'll be somebody that doesn't want to, but for the most part, every player in the world, if they were allowed to, if they could, they would come play for Kansas City right now. Sporting is such a different spot for that. Competing with every league in the world, and not being one of the best, maybe the 10th best or whatever people rank them at now, not having the dollars, because that's the other thing too, is the NWSL is one of the higher paying leagues now. And, the competition is good, all that stuff comes into that play. But Sporting is coming off of a terrible season, a couple of them, they just don't have that cachet to bring in players. There's nothing to attract them there except, oh, you're going to pay me $1 million a year or whatever.
And maybe, hey, you're hosting the World Cup in 2026. Okay.
Yeah, but is that a draw? I mean, I don't know.
Well, I guess get accustomed to where you're going to be playing, on the biggest stage. That's a bit of a draw, I would think, but, not a drastic one.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a high-level national team player, you're just going to play wherever, and you get used to playing wherever.
Right, sure.
If you knew for sure that your team is going to be base camped in Kansas City, maybe, but
Yeah.
you don't even know that. They might be base camped in Mexico or Canada or someplace worse like New York.
Well, I mean, we're not going to get like a starter for the German national team to come play for Sporting, but you can get guys who are really good, but money talks. And this is a sport where guys want to get paid, and you will often see them take transfers to go get more money. I mean, you see it in every sport, right? Like Tyreek Hill turned down the Chiefs' money to go not win Super Bowls in Miami because he wanted money. Like, yeah, Sporting doesn't have a ton to draw from because we're not successful right now, and MLS isn't the best league in the world and whatever. But like, they can pay money, and people will come to make money.
Right. It's not going to be an attraction. It's going to be because somebody pays them. But it's not a high paying league like a lot of other places. So you're going to get guys who can draw $1 million or whatever. I keep throwing out that number like it's nothing. I would like to have it.
Right.
But yeah, it's just not going to be the draw that the current are right now. Anywhere close. People will come play for money, but people might come play for slightly less money if it's a place they want to be.
No.
I'm not saying by a lot less. Just say a little less. So, maybe they play for 950,000 instead of $1 million if they get to be someplace they want to be. Probably not.
Well, right. Since we're talking about roster builds and we're talking about money, should we talk about how MLS finally, for the first time ever, published the amount of allocation money each club has?
Sure. You got it in front of you?
Yeah, I do. Of course, they didn't provide it to us in like a sortable format. So that's, whatever. Why would they make it easy?
Copy, paste, spreadsheet.
Look, I got 3 kids. I got to put up with Cody's crap. Now I got to deal with you. Like, just, it is what it is. So
he still loves us.
What the league provided was the amount of general allocation money per club before it is allocated to paying the players. So most of these dollar figures are already eaten up with like salary, right? But Atlanta United has $6.5 million in GAM, and they're leading the way. You've got a handful of teams in the 4 millions: FC Cincinnati, Dallas, Minnesota United all have over 4 million in GAM. New England has 5.5. You've got teams like Portland at 2.7, which is towards the bottom, if not the very bottom. And then you've got Sporting Kansas City at 3.39 million in GAM, which is not, it's not a ton. It's it's pretty middle of the pack.
And that was before the trade with Colorado. So it's 3.6 more along that line right now.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't remember or want the refresher, general allocation money is used to do all sorts of things like buy down a player's budget charge. So you can take a guy who would be a DP and, you can use general allocation money to make them hit the salary cap at a lower amount. So
for Sporting, that's Shallowy and Radia.
Yeah, if you don't want them to be DPs, you can buy them down.
Right.
So, for instance, if a player is worth, if their salary hit is 450,000 and you use 300,000 in GAM on them, then they only count for 150 against the cap. You can use it to buy down a loan or a transfer fee, and you can use 200,000 of it to sign a new homegrown player to their first MLS contract, which puts them on the supplemental roster rather than the main part. So there's value in having a lot of GAM and flexibility with your GAM, because that's functionally what allows you to, overpay
right
for what the salaries are.
To manipulate the cap. And again, just I don't know if you said it exactly, but teams get GAM by selling players or making trades.
Missing
sometimes
the playoffs.
International spots, missing the playoffs, being in Champions League.
Right.
I don't think they get very much for that. But with that 162,000, they should have moved up to 16th overall of the teams. So for GAM, So because they were basically 160 below San Jose in 17, so that would move them up to a virtual tie with San Jose or slightly above.
Not a lot of
So
roster flexibility.
yeah, so David, you brought up a good point on our little sheet here. Sporting could buy out Shaloi or Radia and go with 4 under 22 DPs. We do have that rumor out there of Geronimo Rivera possibly could be in that category. Maybe I think he's already 21, so maybe not. But will they go with 2 DPs and then 4 under 22s, or will they stick with the 3-and-3 system?
Yeah, so the way that the league has set everything up, you can structure your team in two big ways. One is you can have 3 DPs and 3 U22s, or you can do 2 DPs, 4 U22s, and you get an additional 2 million in general allocation money. So there's the 3-3 or the 2-4 GAM is kind of how the league considers them to be set up. Sporting right now has 3 DPs with Pulido, Shaloi, and Radia, and then we're only using 2 of our 3 U22 spots. It sure seems like it would be better for the club to buy down Radia or Shaloi or both and bring in another DP and sign 2 more U22s and get the extra allocation money.
Well, you would think that this number 10 that they are apparently going hard after is going to have to be a DP, right?
I mean, you hope.
Unless they go, with a young DP and go that way. But that's not the signing that I think people are going to be happy with. Not that that matters.
Yeah, I don't. Right now, are people going to be happy with anything?
Right.
I mean, I saw some, like that rumor of Geronimo Rivera was out there, and people like, oh, this is the guy they're signing. This sucks. This is stupid. This is not good enough. Dude, that's just the first signing. They might be more. You don't know. We don't know yet.
Stay off Reddit. Stay off sporting subreddit. It is a wasteland.
That was not me that was responding to him on there. So
honestly, I think I'm almost of the opinion that I would rather the club, and I know they won't do this, but I would almost rather see the club in a go through a true rebuild, really focus on getting in younger players.
Yeah.
And it will probably be painful for a couple years, right? To not instead of loading up the roster with 27-year-old French guys and 29-year-old Germans. But if we were to actually just really commit to signing young, dynamic, talented players and saying okay, we might suck for a couple years, but we're building the foundation of what will be the next dynasty here. I would be willing to suffer through some bad results if it meant that we were building towards a long-term vision focused around youth players.
So on that line, Peter, in the past, he has developed some young talent, but he's definitely leaned more toward signing the older Europeans and going that way because trying to win now, right? Because that keeps butts in the seats. But, recently with Ndembe, as one example, of Volater, he stuck with him for quite a while. Maybe he's changed in that way and he signed some, we've got some homegrown signings that have been signed already this season. So maybe he's changed his ways a little bit there. Maybe, I don't know. There's hope for that.
Well, I do still think that, he's obviously got the veto button on any player that Burns would sign, but I do think having Burns there is a different voice. Again, sure. We still have yet to see if Burns is going to be good or not. There was a lot of criticism of him when he was in New England, but we also know that there was a lot of restrictions on how the money they had there too. So it's very similar to what Sporting's had over the last few years. But now with the money loosened up a little bit, we still don't know how much or if we'll ever know how much. But I at least want to give the benefit of the doubt to see what they do. But I just think having that other voice there of a different opinion that hasn't been there for so long, kind of being yes, Peter type of thing, might bring in different players.
And let's not forget about Afrifa and Vargas too. So
yeah, I would not if they came out and said, look, we're going to absolutely commit to a youth movement, and we're going to go out and sign as many young dynamic players as we can and develop them over the next year or so to become good contenders. I would have no problem with that. I would love watching these players develop. That's always been like one of my passions of watching players, like how good were they at the beginning of the season, how good were they at the end of the season, and stuff like that. Problem is, coaches don't survive that quite often. He's already been on a hot seat, whether it's said or not. He's on some form of hot seat because of how the last couple years has went, and he's publicly criticized the owners at this point too. So if they suck for the next year, is it going to make it harder for him to be retained? So it's a question for him, and I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on, frankly, a measure of communication, right? That if the club communicates with the fan base that like we are dedicated to this rebuild and you set expectations, then maybe you can suffer through the team being not as competitive, right away because nobody's expecting you to be. But if you go in saying like this year is the year that we're going to win a championship, like we have for so many of the last, so much of the last decade, and you continually flop on your face, then the fan base gets pretty, antsy. So I think it just kind of depends on like what is the actual strategy and what does the messaging around it look like.
So, I mean, worst case scenario, they go into Champions Cup, flame out quickly with a young team. And does that then set them up for struggling early in the season and getting off to another bad start? I don't know. But to me, that would be the worst case scenario. And that's one that I'm seeing right now.
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Champions Cup and flaming out of it, but I mean, who's on our team right now?
Well, yeah.
Right? Like we go into the Champions Cup right now. There have been no announced signings other than the homegrowns that we signed. So we're going into the Champions Cup. Let's say, who's our starting keeper?
Pulskamp.
Okay. Is he a Champions Cup winning keeper?
Well, he won't be until he does.
Is he of a caliber that you think would win the Champions Cup?
If there's a good enough team in front of him, yes. However, right now, no.
Who's going to be starting on the wings?
Well, David, we have almost 2 months to be ready for that. And we have 20 players on the roster.
Right. I mean, that's my point though, right? Is like this team, I mean, we're going to start the Champions Cup with whom? Like who's going to be on the pitch?
Well, as of today, it's probably Shallowy or Afrifa starting on the left, Vargas or Afrifa starting on the right. Let's see, Jake Davis, Basong, Radia, or Memo in the midfield,
and Polito and good old William up front, right?
Yeah, and, or you play Polito as the 10, which.
And remind me, who are we playing in the first round?
Nobody.
Team that just made a hell of a lot of GAM off of trading Campana, which may be a mistake by them, by the way. We'll see.
Yeah. So we'll get to see Messi at Arrowhead, or excuse me, Children's Mercy Park.
I threw up in my mouth a little bit. I mean,
maybe,
but for real though, right? Like the season starts in 2 months. We don't have any players.
Well, training camp starts in a couple weeks.
Two and a
half weeks, something like that. I don't remember the exact date, but I think you wrote
January 11th.
Yeah. So I mean, right now we need Christmas presents, right?
Yeah, we do.
Sporting needs presents. That player Geronimo Rivera posted something on like social media, like, yeah, I'll be missing you guys, to his brothers, but I don't, that just could mean anything, right? Maybe he's coming here, maybe he's going elsewhere. But even one of those players doesn't mean that they're going to be competitive. But again, even if you said earlier that you would love for them to commit to a youth movement, well, that youth movement means you lose badly in Champions Cup. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
right.
it also means you have to sign players that actually stand a chance to be good one day. And like, no disrespect to any of the like, homegrowns or anything like that, but like, we haven't signed anybody.
Not yet that we've heard.
Right. But like, okay, to give context, Alan Pulido in 2019 got signed on December 11th. It's December 22nd right now.
Right.
So
That
who
is
are we going to
true.
sign that's going to be able to come in for training camp and like be part of the team?
The draft picks.
Stellar.
Hey, David, these are professional athletes. They'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Um, you know how
Here's
long
my
it's
question,
taken
though.
to get V1, P1 visas too? So
Here's my question, though. I mean, you look at Rivera, the highlights on him, you look at the characteristics of Vargas and Afrifa. Are we going to be changing into more of a counterattacking team? I don't know. Just with those pieces, it might somewhat look like that. Or Peter's going to take in these attacking instincts that some of these players have and, form them into this mold of the 4-3-3 or a little flexibility out of that. I don't know. We'll see.
I think we've seen a lot of essentially a counterattacking team the last couple of years when they don't have the ability to control the ball like they did before,
Yeah.
and they were
It's not
playing that
anymore.
4-2-3-1 with a couple of D mids, an amazing attacking midfielder like Polito or others,
Well,
and
let's just say we're not to the level of the Galaxy or LAFC yet.
no, but it will take some time. Okay, I
Oh,
mean,
sure.
in fairness, again, and you're also trying to look at getting players in the midst of the European schedule. Apparently, Argentina's schedule is also, spring through fall, I guess, or winter, but
Well, it's summer down there right
Anyway,
now.
it's yeah, true. You're right. It was very weird seeing the like, oh, their schedule is done and they played 27 games, one against every other team, but no home and home. So I just didn't understand how their schedule works in Argentina. So, but
but let's
that's the place you can get players right now.
let's also keep in mind the words of Mike Burns and Peter Vermees that they maybe weren't going to do a whole lot of action in this window, like Thad was alluding to. It may just be the summer one they're looking at to make bigger moves.
Which then means that that player doesn't get integrated as well until the
Right.
following year.
Right.
Which, you know, everybody talks about the changing to the fall spring schedule. That's the only advantage to doing that is you get players from Europe easier. All right, we only have a couple minutes left on our free Zoom. So if anybody is out there that wants to sponsor us so that we can use a more expensive version of Zoom when we do not have access to the studio because Cody is off doing other stuff, they can sponsor us, and we will happily say nice things about whatever business they have, even if we don't like them. But that's part of what being paid to do these things are, right?
What do we think Cody's doing tonight?
Family stuff, holiday stuff.
Because tomorrow he's unavailable to record because he plays like 7 hours of volleyball every Monday night.
I gotta think 5.5 of that's drinking.
Which, like his age, is very impressive.
Hey, he's a man about town.
Yes,
That's just admit it.
Cody has like a very youthful thing going for him, but Cody's like in his mid 30s, and
I still think he's like 24,
yeah.
but I'm old. Everybody looks young, even Robert.
Yeah, no. So the Comets 3-0-1, right,
Yes.
Thad? Off to a nice start.
3 wins and an overtime loss. They played a lot of games early, 4 games, and other teams have caught up a little bit now. So they are still at the top of the table, looking good.
30 goals scored. That's pretty impressive.
I know they have a plus differential. They have a differential of plus 15 for against goals for versus goals against. By far the highest. The next highest is plus 8. So, and that's a 6th place team right now. So, of course, that team's only played 2 games.
So do they look like I don't know, it's early, but how do they look compared to the team that we saw at the in the championship last year? Is stronger in some ways or hard to tell so far?
Hard to tell because 2 of those games was against the St. Louis team that,
Right.
it's just such a shame they can't get good soccer players over there. But anyway, they beat them twice the first two games, and then they played Milwaukee. They lost in the overtime there. Controversial call. Don't want to go into all the details there. They could have at least got another point out of that game easily, or not lost any points. And then the fourth game was against Dallas. It was their first game of the season. They got some young players. They got some talent. They probably aren't going to be a top contender. They could be, but they probably won't be. So that's their first four games. Their next two games is against St. Louis again. So they play this weekend and then on New Year's Eve in St. Louis, well, St. Charles, Family Arena.
Okay, can you explain to me? I mean, how in the hell have we played so many more games than some of these other teams?
Well, right now it's actually evened out a lot, except there is one team with one team with two. Everybody else has 3 or 4.
How?
It's available dates, man. There's only one team in that list that controls their arena. They built their own arena. They have a indoor soccer specific arena, and that is San Diego. They're the only ones that control it. Everybody else has to compete for dates, and so then it's a juggling schedule. It's not a balance because they can't get everybody's dates to match up, etc. It's crazy.
So are they is San Diego like the current where they can just get whoever they want because they have their own stadium?
Well, this is their first year for the stadium, but they have already done that in the past because their owner has a lot of money.
By the way, if you are a Comets fan or you want to be a Comets fan, the Blue Turf, Thad's pod on the Comets. I mean, this guy had the Comets commentator and the Comets coach on last episode. So that's the place to be, the Blue Turf. Check it out.
Well, I typically do it with Eric Bergerud, who's one half of their on-air broadcast team. Well, I'll say 1/3 now since they've got Lux. But yeah, he's great, good history knowledge. But we are about to run out of time, so kudos to the Comets for doing well. Kudos to the Current for building their roster up right now and looking to do some more. And I think they will probably get a couple other young players in there too, since they don't have a college draft. But we are about to run out of time, so
guys, what do you want for Christmas?
A good attacking mid.
Robert?
Same.
All right.
Hey, that's 3 of us. I want a Brazilian number 10 DP.
We are out.
It's Saturday and the game is on. 10 minutes in, it's 3-0. I'm sipping back an empty can. I don't give a damn if it's 9 a.m. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer, whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. Just been sent off. Supporters strong have all gone soft. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking. Give me beer or whiskey, wine or gin, anything to shake this mood I'm in. My football team's got me drinking. My football team's got me drinking.